Are Reform UK the new opposition party? Well, let's see what my panel make of that. I'm joined by broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy, also former Labour MP Bill Rammell. Bill Rammell, I'll start with you.
No, they're not the opposition to the Labour Party.
Why not?
One opinion poll. There's been three since then, putting the Tories ahead of Reform, albeit narrowly. Even if Reform ended up 1 or 2% ahead of the Tories on polling day, first past the post will protect the Tory party. Reform might get 1 or 2 seats. The Tories, I think, realistically will get at least 70, 80 seats. However, the fact that in that poll they did move ahead of the Tories has terrified the Tory party. Far be it from me to give dispassionate advice to the Tory party, but I think they've got to take Farage on. Not by saying a vote for him is a vote for Labour, because frankly most people are acclimatised to the Labour Party women, but taking him on and exposing him for the populist that he is.
Well, why are you calling him a populist? What about him is a populist? Surely a populist is somebody who will talk about popular policies, isn't that? What is a populist?
A populist is
in your understanding?
A populist is someone who peddles simplistic solutions to complicated problems. He does that all the time.
So hang on, let me just... OK, so let me bring you a policy from the Labour Party.
Yeah.
20% VAT on private schools will bring them 1.6 billion, which is a very small portion of a budget, but it doesn't really account for the other factors around it, like the children's education, where are the space in the schools, and so on and so forth, where these kids are going to go. To me, that's a pretty simplistic answer to a very complex problem. So aren't the Labour Party also populists?
It's a fair policy. It is about fairness and equity in support of the 93% of children who go to state schools.
But you can call it fair, but from your definition of populism, it's a populist policy as well, because it doesn't take into account... Even the unions are turning away from that one. Even the unions are saying that's not going to bring in the money. Also, as is the OBR looking at it and saying that if it costs the taxpayer money, they'll need to scrap it.
Yeah, but, sorry, if you look at the dispassionate, independent analysis, for example, from the Institute for Fiscal Studies, it said there will be some attrition, but and they've estimated that it will bring in that amount of money. I also think that private schools won't pass on all of the VAT increase.
Well, again, I'm just challenging you on the word populist when you're calling Nigel Farage a populist, when you guys are bringing out simplistic policies yourself.
To make a good government, we need a strong opposition, and that is in Nigel Farage. And Bill, you have to admit, considered where Reform were when Nigel now, came in and said, I'm standing. Look at the leap they've got now in head of the Tories. And Rishi was watching him for ages, and he knew he was on the jungle. He was worried because the younger generation now all know who Nigel Farage is. Believe me, I've seen them around him. They all love Nigel now. And he has really reached out to a different audience, somewhere that Keir Starmer can't actually reach, because Keir Starmer has done 27 U-turns. No one actually believes what he said. Look what he's done on the green issue.
But Lizzie, he has a double-digit poll lead. So all of that is all very well.
But it's by default. It's by default of the Tories. I don't believe it's on Keir Starmer's policies.
Well, what about the Tories? What about the Conservative Party, though? Where are they then? Because, as Bill's pointed out, this electoral system is unlikely to allow Nigel's party to lead, but unless there's some serious shift.
Well, I think there can be a serious shift. And the fact is, Keir Starmer won't go against Nigel Farage. He's asked it on the immigration issue to have a one-to-one. Why doesn't he do that? Keir Starmer can't do it because all he can say is, my dad's a toolmaker.
Do you know, Lizzie...
And he made him.
Yeah, but...
He made him. And also he went to a private school, Bill. Let's be honest about this.
Well, it was a grammar school.
There was a grammar that went into...
became fee-paying, so to be fair to him.
Hold on, Lizzie.
And I need to go to this, but I want to come back to this. But this shows nothing without you and your views. Let's welcome our great British voices. Their opportunity to be on the show and tell us what they think about the topics we're discussing. Let's have a chat with Lee Harris. Lee Harris, what are your thoughts? Come on. Nigel Farage, is it a possibility for Reform UK to become the opposition? Nigel is saying that. Nigel Farage is saying that.
I can understand why he's saying it, but, I personally couldn't believe that the crossover...
Oh, he's frozen.
What happened in this bombshell YouGov poll, putting, Reform one point ahead of the Conservative Party, the oldest and most successful political party in the world. It is only one poll, and it is within the margin of error. But it's fair to say that, considering Nigel Farage only announced his return to politics, just over a week ago, that is quite an incredible achievement. And it's also fair to say that this is unlikely to translate into enough seats for Reform to actually become the official opposition, but it is still technically possible. But Nigel Farage is making quite a salient argument. He's saying the election is over, Labour have won, which is, to be fair, the general consensus in the polls and with political commentators, and he's fighting to be the voice of opposition in Parliament. And one of the biggest complaints about the Conservatives is there's not much difference between them and the Labour Party. You know, the Conservatives are not that conservative. And he feels he'll be the real voice of opposition. Now, in my view, the other main reason Nigel Farage is making this point is he wants to be included in the four-way leaders debate coming up, which currently includes the leader of the Lib Dems, Conservatives, Labour and the SNP. And I personally think this is a completely valid request and he should be included. Reform have been consistently polling ahead of the Lib Dems, way ahead of the SNP. Since January this year. I mean, I think it's actually permanently ahead of the S&P. And I think he has a right to be there. Now, I don't know exactly what the rules are with the BBC, but my gut tells me they're not going to let him.
Well, Lee, you never know. It would be really interesting.
All the money in the world, Starmer and Sunak don't want him there because he's a better debater than both of them put together.
Well, I don't think that's difficult. I think we could both do probably a better debate than those two. Yeah. Lee Harris, thank you very much for